You're listening to the Wedding Biz Network, the voice of the creative entrepreneur. Hey everyone, it's Andy Kushner, host of the Wedding Biz. And I want to mention that I recently launched a new podcast called The Music Makers, which is a podcast of behind-the-scenes stories from some of the most influential music industry professionals around. It releases almost every Friday, so be sure to check it out, The Music Makers. Also, we're all going through quite a bit of stress at this time in history, obviously. And so I put together a list of top 10 tips for dealing with stress, culled from my interviews with icons of the weddings and event business. To get a copy, go to theweddingbiz.com/top tips. Again, to get this list of top 10 tips from the industry pros, go to theweddingbiz.com/top tips. So last week's episode, if you missed it on Monday, was Kunbi Odubogun. She founded and runs Perfect, which is a virtual space dedicated to celebrating weddings, parties, home decor, career, and travel. It was a very dynamic conversation last Monday. And on last Wednesday, I had an interview with some of our peeps in the event industry who founded the Washington, D.C. and the ones who founded the Chicago event coalitions to advocate during the pandemic on behalf of a network of hundreds of small businesses and contractors in the event industry. Very important conversation last Wednesday. So without further ado, today's guest is Matt Porteous, an award-winning photographer who has gained a world-class reputation for his just absolutely exquisite documentary-style photography. He is also considered the royal photographer for his work with the Cambridges. Matt also helps changemakers to make a difference and shoots on behalf of Ocean Culture Life as well, which is a global community of storytellers, photographers, filmmakers, and environmentalists whose lives have been shaped by the sea. So enjoy my conversation with Matt Porteous. Matt, it is so much fun to have you on the show, especially I can see from this map on my computer, it shows me where my guests are located, and I see you're on this little island. I'm so envious that that's where you're stuck, is on an island.
Hi, Andy. Thanks very much. It's lovely to be here. I'm on this tiny island of Jersey, and I think for a lot of people in New Jersey and New York, they won't even know where it is.
Yes, let's specify that it's not that Jersey. That's true. Where is Jersey located for those of us who are terrible with geography?
Okay, so Jersey, it's hard to see it on the map. If you put it into Google Maps and you go in really close, it's tucked in next to France. It's in the British Channel, so it's south of the UK. It's an island that's it's in a group called the Channel Islands. There's a few islands here, but Jersey's the biggest one. It's 9 miles by 5. It's about 50 miles around the island. And yeah, we're locked down here. So, it was a beautiful place to be brought up. And, I'm very fortunate to call it home.
Well, I was so knocked out by your website, Matt, and it's clear, obviously we're going to get into this, how much you love adventure. And so you grew up in Jersey, didn't you? This island.
Yeah, I grew up, I was born and raised in Jersey. I was brought up in this island life, which, you start to realize that later on in life that I think there's a certain kind of island mentality that people have. And there's a couple of things. One's, community kind of driven culture that you have. And the other one is very much adventure and travel because you live on a small island. You always want to go and explore and see the bigger and greater things. I've always loved road trips and I love big adventures. So, being brought up in Jersey really kind of gave me the zest for travel and adventure.
Were you into, as a child, did you have any interest at that point in photography?
Yeah. I've been interested in photography since I was a young kid. I was about 7, I think, when I first picked up my camera. I talk about it. I found it recently, and it's my little yellow underwater Minolta camera. And I remember that. I remember that just kind of used to follow me around everywhere. I'll just take it with me everywhere. And I always just, I was brought up in Jersey. I was left down the beach as a teenager. I had this really kind of outdoorsy upbringing, which was which was really fun. It was really nice to have that. I was really fortunate to have that upbringing in Jersey, being brought up on the beach. I was a surfer. But I remember I always used to spend my time out on my surfboard, just watching the waves and just always just kind of being in awe of how beautiful they were. So at quite an early age, I started taking pictures, and I started taking photos of my experience and the way I saw the world, which wasn't the way that all of my friends saw the world. So I always felt a little bit, I always felt I had to kind of keep my work to myself and probably my vision to myself. So I just used my photography to kind of really let people know how I saw the world.
Well, how could you put in words how kind of staying with when you were young, a teenager, and really starting to get into photography and, outdoor life, how did you see the world relative to your friends? What did that mean?
I just remember really kind of taking in the surroundings, and I was always really aware of people, and I used to get really affected by people's like moods. So I'd pick up on a good mood or a bad mood, and it's something that I still see today. But I always pick up on the good. I think I used to get too affected by some like little negative moods, but so then I would always surround myself with really positive people. And I just remember I'd take walks. I'd go out with my dog when I was younger, and we have these really dramatic the north coast in Jersey is really beautiful, big cliffs, and then we have these big wide open beaches. And I just remember I just really enjoyed my time alone, but I also really enjoyed just capturing these blank canvas images and using having my friends in them. When I built up a bit more confidence, when it became a little bit later on in life. And I just, I was the only one in our friendship group who always had a camera. So, it's funny, isn't it? You don't really know why when you're younger, and then when it's a true passion. I think this is it, isn't it? I never thought it would ever be a career, but it was always just a passion for me. I just loved it.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're reminding me. I'm just like getting these memories as you're talking. I was 6 or 7 when I discovered music, and
oh, cool.
Yeah, starting to play piano, then trumpet at 9, and it's the same thing. I can't exist. If someone was asking me where did that come from, I don't know. It was just this instantaneous love, for an instrument and for playing music. So when you were getting ready to leave school, did you know at that point that you wanted to be a full-time photographer? Was it just natural, or were you actually going for something else when you got out of school?
Oh, no, absolutely not. I mean, I really didn't. School didn't work out for me. Let's put it that way. I think my head was so in the clouds all the time.
Yeah.
The teachers didn't really understand how to deal with me. Not that I was naughty at school. I just really struggled to focus at school. Or there's so many different things you need to be good at. And I've realized, it's the thing you realize later. You're only really good at a couple of things in life. You were amazing at music, and you realize that early on, and you could hear sound, I'm sure, which was, that was your route, wasn't it? So
that's right.
And I just remember that I would just be sitting in school and looking out the window and not really knowing what I wanted to do. Photography was never on the curriculum. It was maths and science, and photography was never there. So I had no idea what I wanted to be when I left school. I left school at an early age. I left school when I was just leaving 15 into 16. That's when you'd have your GCSEs when you're 16 in the UK. I'm not sure what they're called in the US, but had those, and I left school. And Jersey's it's a small farming island, and it's a tax haven. So you either go into the corporate world, you go into banking or law or accounting, or you go into farming if you're in that world, or fishing, or you go into the building industry. So I left school with no GCSEs really. And I didn't really know what to do. So I went into the building industry because I heard that it was a great way to make money and see the world.
Oh.
which wasn't true.
It wasn't.
On both accounts.
Oh, I was going to ask you, on which account was that?
No, it wasn't.
So did you leave the island at that time?
I actually did. I took a 4-year apprenticeship in the building, in my building trade. I was a stonemason.
Huh.
And then from 16, I started traveling alone, or with friends. So all I did for those 4 years was I worked really hard and I saved money. And then when I was 20, I set off and I went on a 2-year adventure, and left Jersey behind, and traveled around the world, and I was a surf bum.
Oh God, Matt, this sounds so amazing. And where did you start? Was this all over the world, or what parts of the world did you go to?
Well, the first stop was Bali. That was the first place I arrived.
Yeah.
I was with a good friend of mine, Seb. He's unfortunately not with us anymore. He was my first travel companion, and we learned. I just remember we would just go to the waves, and we went out to this place called Sumbawa, and we surfed every day, and we just met this really incredible group of people. And I remember, I had my camera. I had I was really into my photography then, and I had my camera with me, and I think it was that traveling, starting in Bali and then working our way down to Australia, and we traveled all through Australia. We drove from the East Coast to the West Coast, and just met so many incredible people along the way. And I just that's where I really learned to find out people's characters, and really, love to hear stories of people that were brought up in worlds that I never knew about.
Yeah, it's so interesting how you're talking, because I started to travel in my 20s, but it was really decades later, and people who listen to the show regularly know I had taken 3 5-week trips, and I centered them mostly around Maui, and which is a stunning, beautiful island, and I did not do the tourist stuff at all, and I met lots of people who lived there and hung out with them, and I met a lot of travelers, and it's interesting. As there's a whole culture around traveling, and I wasn't as aware of that till only 4 or 5 years ago, and really I realized how it is a culture, isn't it? It's a culture to be comfortable with traveling, whether you're alone or with friends, and to be comfortable and enjoy meeting all these people of different cultures and becoming friends with them and having these shared adventures. And so as you talk, that's what I can picture is this incredible adventurous lifestyle that you have had forever.
Absolutely. That's it. Yeah, it is a culture. It's interesting you say that. And it's nice that you say that, because it is a culture, and it's almost one of those things where you have so many stories when you are traveling and when you are adventuring, but then when you come home, it's hard to talk about the adventure that you've had.
That's right. How could people understand?
Yeah, how could people understand? Unless they live the same world that you do.
Yes, right.
A lot of the time, you can go away and you can have your adventures and you can have this journey, and then you'll come home and then you just and then you talk about what you always talk about. Hey guys, how's the weather? Or, what did you do yesterday? Where are you going tomorrow? But it's almost, you almost want to keep these adventures are there for you, and you meet these wonderful, incredible people along the way. And for me as a photographer, I capture these beautiful images along the way, but it's not saying that you ever show them. You don't really, you don't share all the images, or you don't share the story too much. It's just, I guess it's a lot of it's for you, isn't it?
I get that. And that's why I do think there's this shared language, with travelers who do get it. Well, so let's talk about your images, because, I'm understanding better from getting some of your story here, why your images to me are just so absolutely, they're so emotional, and it's not just words or a phrase about telling stories through photography. I get that sense of what we're talking about right now, of your passion, and with these images, and that you're really in it. You're not just taking pictures of something you see, but I understand now you are also experiencing it to a very big degree.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really nice of you to say that. I think, I I very much in any photo shoot situation, any wedding, any family shoot, I just submerse myself into their culture. And when I say their culture, it's almost, I'm either submersing myself in a travel location culture or around a certain group of people. But in a wedding specific, it's molding yourself into that culture of that friends group. I think I'm very fortunate that, because of my photography, I have certain clients that come to me, but, that probably come to me because of my style.
They're like-minded in a sense.
Yeah, they're like-minded. They're like-minded, but I will submerse myself in their culture for 15 hours, 18 hours in the day. Just so I can get, I'll jump in and I'm friends with everybody and I want to try and connect with everybody and then I can get the best out of them.
So you're not just silent, a silent observer. You're really, like you say, you're talking with them. You're becoming part of the experience that they are having.
Absolutely, as much as I can, always. Yeah, I think it's so important. It's so important first to connect, before a photo shoot. But I think even if you don't even have the opportunity to do that, I think there's a certain way to mold into the surroundings and to get to know people. And people just are so much more relaxed when you take interest in them.
So, yeah. So, it's mind-boggling to me that you also, you do so much. I mean, you do documentary style wedding photography, which certainly want to get into in a few moments. You also you're the royal photographer for some of the Cambridges. We'll come back to that in a little bit. You also, I'm going to want to hear about the open culture life that you're involved in, this global community of storytellers, photographers, filmmakers, environmentalists whose lives have been shaped by the sea. I want to hear about that. I don't know, Matt, how you're balancing it all. I just don't. And you are, from what I can tell, you're doing so well in all these different genres of photography. Can you say something about that? Big question. I know.
Yeah, ask my studio. I don't know how I'm managing to balance it. And I question it so often. I just question, why am I doing so much? Because a lot of photographers they'll just be, they have one area that they work in. They specialize, and then and then they'll have their personal work as well, which we'll talk about as well. But so they specialize. But I think because I'm always just been passionate about taking pictures. Then as soon as I started out my career as a photographer, which is 12 years ago now, full time, as soon as I started out, I was shooting everything to make ends meet. I didn't just come in as a wedding photographer. I didn't just come in as a commercial photographer. I came in doing bits and pieces for everyone. I was photographing my friends' weddings, and then I was photographing some business portraits. So, and it just carried on like that. There's no area that I don't like in photography. So if I'm trying to say, I need to stop doing something, I still to this day, I'm just struggling. I'm like, well, no, I want to be doing everything. It's not that it kind of hinges me from being good at it. It's photography is photography. Getting on with people is getting on with people. So, it's just about, it's just it's just surrounding yourself with, I guess I'm lucky now because I get to go to really beautiful places and I photograph, wonderful people and beautiful places. So that makes it even more exciting for me. So I'm very fortunate. I realize how fortunate I am every day, and I just don't like to let any of it go.
Do you like music? Do you love music? Okay, stupid questions. Here's the point. You can now hear conversations with some of the biggest music industry professionals around, including artists, songwriters, record company executives, recording engineers, and more. And it's my other podcast called The Music Makers. You can find it on your cell phone's podcast app or at themusicmakers.com. Again, that's The Music Makers. Let's start with events, with weddings and events. Your website talks about documentary style wedding photography. How, to a layman who may not understand what that means, can you describe what that genre, documentary style, means for a wedding?
Documentary it's documentary storytelling. It's, for me, it's capturing the day as I see it and giving anybody that is looking at the images and say they have no connection with a couple, but just by going through the images, they can see the whole story, the whole day story come to life. So it's very much capturing a lot of images and everything that's going on and being able to tell that story of those moments that were just missed, or, those beautiful moments between a couple and the family moments, and then the friends that were, in a different area. It's, it's being able to let everybody who is at the wedding, or also everybody who's at the wedding, to be able to look at the images after and be like, wow, I didn't see that happening. That was such a magical moment. I remember that moment.
Yeah.
Even with my couples, I don't pose my couples. I just give them the freedom to go and enjoy each other's company. And then so I capture that. So then that's still documentary. I'm still just capturing it as naturally as I can without posing anything.
Well, so what is your process? When you meet a wedding client, they decide to hire you. Do you start shooting before the wedding day? Like, I've heard some photographers will purposely set up an engagement shoot so that they can start to connect with the couple in order to have that vulnerability and the comfort level the day of the wedding. How do you do it? What is your process with a couple?
Yeah, we do. I do try to do that as often as possible. What I like to do first is, as soon as a couple gets in touch with me, then I'll always try and just get on the phone with them. Now it's becoming weirdly easy with the likes of Zoom, because my couple's all over the world. So I'd love to have a face-to-face meeting if that's possible, or I just like to speak to them on the phone and find out really, where they kind of came across my site and, what images mean to them. And then we'll stay connected. And it's not really, my team will be kind of doing all the kind of the back end, organizing the day, what's going to happen, the times and places, and we'll stay connected on that. But then in terms of actually coming to the pictures, if we can get time before the wedding, I like to call it a portrait shoot, because engagement shoots sometimes in the UK is, guys shy away from the word engagement shoot.
Okay.
But if you tell guys it's a portrait shoot, they're like, oh yeah, that sounds like fun.
Okay.
I think a lot of things are different in the UK than they are in the US. The way even the whole structure of the wedding.
Yeah, I would love to hear about this, in terms of how it relates to photography.
Yeah, we can talk about it. I tell you what, I just don't get a lot of time with my couples. I've got to say, I just don't get a lot of time. So I've got to try and make the most of a short amount of time with my couples. So, getting them together prior to the wedding for a portrait shoot is great. We always have a lot of fun. I always try and do something that's really them as characters. It really kind of brings out their, what makes you, what's your kind of like dream thing to do on a weekend? Where's your happy place? Where would you love to go this weekend? And take them to the happy place. And, if they're with their children, or if they have pets, or if they want to be with friends, then I'll go and capture that.
Oh, that's a wonderful idea. So it's not just the two of them necessarily.
No, it's not just the two of them. Because sometimes a lot of, couples not everybody wants to kind of show.
Yeah.
And to be fair, most of the people don't. A lot of the time, the girls love to have the pictures taken, but the guys don't necessarily. So
that's right.
Yeah. So it's a lot of the time, it really is kind of relaxing the guys, I think. And then, when we had time together and I've asked them to do some like stupid things, we'll go and stand on the end of a cliff, or go and climb up a tree, or, just something fun just to get that personality out.
Yeah.
And then they relax. Yeah. They loosen up, and then they see the pictures afterwards. And yeah, so then the wedding day, they just have the wedding day, they don't really kind of notice you anyway, but on the wedding day, they're super relaxed and they know the kind of quality of the images they're going to get. So they're, so I think it really works. And a lot of the weddings that we have now are 3-day weddings. So we will, I will always do a photo shoot with a couple before the wedding, on the day before the wedding, and then we go to the wedding day.
And you are also considered, from what I've seen, the royal photographer. I know that you've worked with the Cambridges, with Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. And what are you able to say about that? I know you can't say a ton, but what can you tell us about your experience doing that? Like, how did you get, first of all, I mean, Matt, how did you get this? And I know you also photographed William and Kate. How did you come to be chosen for this, first of all?
Yeah. I mean, I've been very fortunate over the last 4 years to photograph the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. It really was a game changer for me. I didn't realize how big it would be at the time. I don't really know what I was thinking when it first happened. It happened over a number of events, and I'd been fortunate to, and they were at some of the events that I photographed at, and like with everybody, I just, I treat everybody the same, and I would just have fun, and I'd chat to people, and I just think that, they like to be surrounded by just normal people that aren't trying to be anyone special. So, and I got some really beautiful pictures of their family, and then I think it was a year or two later, I was asked to photograph a family portrait for them. And that was for Prince George's 3rd birthday. So that was the first image that was released. And, it was Prince George, and this beautiful picture of him coming from behind the tree. And then there was Prince George, and he was feeding his dog an ice cream, which kind of stirred up the press a little bit because
Okay.
Because they were saying the dog shouldn't eat ice creams and all this thing. But yeah, so it's been a really fun few years. So then I'll get caught up every now and again, and I'll photograph for the next birthday, or I'll photograph the christening of Prince Louis. And
I said Prince Louis, I realize right now. I'm a typical American. What do I know?
And they're such an incredible family. They do so many amazing things for charities around the world. At home in the UK, they're doing a lot of stuff around mental health. And Prince William he's doing a lot of stuff for conservation, and the Duchess of Cambridge is doing a lot around mental health. So, I'm also fortunate. I photograph a lot of some of their events that they turn up to, and I think because of the work that I do on my personal work as well, which is a lot around change makers and working for charities, it's really, really very special for me to work around the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, because they're such incredible change makers, and so many people listen to them and respect their views in the world.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned that it was a game changer for you. I can make assumptions, but how did that go for you?
Yeah, I mean, when you start getting the front cover of the press all around the world, then it quickly changes at a fast rate. I was busy before. I had a studio. I had a studio with 4 people in. I was photographing about 30 weddings a year, I think, and it was really busy. And then this came out in the press, and I think it just gives a certain confidence in clients that they can trust that you're going to do a good job.
Gave you credibility.
Yeah, it gave me credibility. And I don't speak to the press about it. I don't, they always want to know what's happened on the shoots and everything, which is I just don't see there's any reason to be talking about that. I talk about the amazing work that they're doing with the charities. But it was, it just quickly moved over those 6 months, and then just I started working more with wedding planners and agents for certain families and couples. So it definitely, it changed into a world that I always kind of dreamt to work in, at that, this high end wedding industry, and working with, the most amazing planners in the world. And I'd always dreamt it, and I'd always seen it, but I always wondered how to get there. And so I guess that's, something that's pretty beautiful that's come out of this is just being able to work in these wonderful places with really amazing people.
Well, also, you've got what I saw on your site, Studio M for Change. And there's a quote here, which I love. In order to inspire others, you must first tell an inspiring story.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Isn't that true?
Yeah.
So Studio for Change, it's something that it first stemmed from my work that I was doing with Ocean Culture Life, which is around getting a community of ocean storytellers together to help capture stories from the ocean and be able to share them. So to be able to share these stories of guardians, and the guardians are these individuals or non-profit organizations that have devoted their whole lives to a project to rescuing, to looking after the ocean, to looking after sharks, or rescuing children in India from child slavery. These are the guardians. These are the people that devote their whole lives to something to help others. So for me, change makers as storytellers, we're able to go and meet these people, and we're able to hear their story, and we're able to capture it. And they wouldn't necessarily have funding to be able to create good content and create content that can actually make a difference, and content that can reach a wider audience, which through social media and the right connections and editorials and big online platforms, you can reach a lot of people now. And I think that really kind of helps them moving forward with funding and donations. So, and it's something that we feel very passionate about in the studio, is being able to tell these stories and then being able to share them and being able to help our change makers.
Yeah, I mean, definitely have in the show notes, we'll have links to all of this. I mean, because it's just, and it's stunning. And I do feel moved when I see these pictures. Could you tell me one story that really affected you deeply? I mean, I can see you're affected by everything you do, but can you give one story in particular?
You can see I'm affected by everything.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it in your photos, sure.
Well, yeah, I'd tell you, I mean, it's over the last year and a half, no, over the last 2 years, actually, sorry. We've been working alongside a couple of organizations. One is Good Weave in India and Nepal. And it is getting children out of child labor.
Oh, yeah.
And I think just so to put it into perspective, we always want to tell a positive story. I think this just comes from, it comes from, as a wedding photographer, you always want to tell you're always telling positive stories. But I think I've always seen the good in the world, and I've never wanted to share too much negativity, because I think also people become unaffected by negative stories. So we want to align ourselves. So we align ourselves with organizations that are doing good, and we're there to capture the positive story that comes out of the work that they've done on the ground. So I work in India with the children, getting children out of child slavery in the rug industry and the apparel industry. It's something that's really touched us and it's really moved us. And it's when we go to the schools that the organizations are able to build. That's where you really feel that you're able to help as a photographer, because you can see the smile on the children's faces.
Yeah.
Most of the images you see in India and Nepal, you'll see smiles in children's faces, because this is a positive story. This is what the charities are able to fund the schools, and they're able to get people on the ground, and they can go around and they can get the children that are in slavery, that have been trafficked from India into Nepal or vice versa. And they just have these beaming smiles that you just capture, and it just makes us feel so good.
Wow. How old are these children?
Oh, they could be everything. They could be anything from 12 to 14, 15, 16.
Wow.
Yeah. So they're rescued, and we see the other side. I've seen the other side of it as well. And there was I went to a brick kiln earlier this year in Nepal, and we also went around some back streets in Nepal and saw the kind of the real situation and where they're being rescued from. Yeah. And that really kind of struck a chord with me.
Wow. So how are you dealing? Look, at the time of this recording, it's been 2 months into this pandemic, and we just don't have these events right now. How, Matt, are you dealing with that? How is this affecting your life, and how are you taking care of yourself during this time?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? There's so many peaks and troughs of emotion that's been going on over it's almost 3 months now, which is totally crazy. The first 2 months of the year, I spent working on projects in the Maldives around ocean projects, and then I went to India and Nepal. So 2 months I was working on projects for charities. And then I came, and we had to leave India. I remember seeing America was going to shut the border and to the UK. And I thought, we've got to get out of here. You know, we kind of pushed it to the last few days.
Uh-huh.
And then, so we just I was up at 1 a.m, booking a flight, changing our flights. And I had a team of 4 of me out there, and we booked the flights, and we left the next morning at 8 o'clock, I think. Got on a flight, got into Delhi, and then left Delhi and got back to the UK just in time, just before they shut the borders. So,
wow.
So for the first month, I think I was working on my projects, and I was editing, and then I was just trying to figure out what to do, and just getting everything kind of looking good and kept getting up to date. But now as it's gone on, it's become almost, I don't know, I think for the second month, I was really kind of questioning a lot of things, and probably I was spending too much time in front of my computer, and I was working till 4 a.m. every day, just trying to connect with people and trying to reevaluate the business, which is always hard to do, but also there's a lot of positive things that we've worked on over the last few years. So it's just trying to get things aligned when we come out of this. And unfortunately with all this, and, as all your listeners will know, the wedding industry is the one that's been hit the hardest.
Yeah.
Weddings and events. So with the weddings and events, we're just kind of sitting back and just waiting to see when some small weddings can go ahead.
That's right.
And maybe just, the idea of these big kind of 250 people weddings is maybe it's something that's going to be put back until next year. Well, it's going to be something that's put back until next year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a while.
Yeah. I think I stressed about it for a long time though, for a few weeks. And then for the last few weeks, Jersey has settled down. There's no new cases. In fact, I think there's only 12 cases in Jersey now. Mm-hmm. There's no more deaths. They built this new hospital. So Jersey's kind of opened up, and I've got to be honest, I've taken the last few weeks just to spend a lot of free time at the beach and just appreciate not being so busy all the time.
Sure.
Because you spend so much time being busy, spend so much time on flights and in the studio editing and more flights and travel and airports, and it's just kind of back to back. And I just remember just so many times getting near burnout. So it's been quite nice just to breathe.
Yeah. Kind of recharge yourself.
Yeah. That's it, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm going through the same thing. Of course, I want to be, continue to be profitable, but at the same time, it's almost become cliche, but it's true. There are gifts that are coming out of this, out of the slowdown, both personally and even with the business, to be forced in a sense to relook at how do I want to be running my business, and so it has been a chance to recharge. I mean, I hope it doesn't go on too long. But even if it does, what are we going to do? We need to just, I believe, embrace it in a sense and still be able to feel joy in our lives and to grow and evolve.
Absolutely. I mean, that's it, isn't it? Until you put into a situation like this, you don't really, you'd never know what to do in a situation like this. So, but then when you put into it, then I think people are just realizing now that, okay, we don't have to work at such a speed. We don't have, it doesn't have to be so crazy. People will know now that their life was just too crazy, and they weren't having that family time, and they weren't having that friend time, and they weren't.
And personal time.
Their personal time. Yeah. Their own time. And with that time, you can be so much more productive. There are going to be so many new businesses that come out of this. You said you started a new business over the last few weeks.
That's right. I launched a podcast network producing shows for other people, and this would not have happened otherwise. It just wouldn't have, at least not at this time, not quickly. And
I think that's amazing because you're straight away you're helping other people. You're doing it so you can help other people through your experience over the last few years. You're able to give them that experience. And,
that's right.
Yeah, which is so good. And I think there's a lot of people doing this. I'm personally I'm putting tutorials together, which is more about in terms of the photography world, it's like how to kind of get through as in the photography world rather than how to use a camera, because I don't really know how to use a camera. I just know how to take pictures.
Right.
But, it's the journey, isn't it? It's a journey, how to connect with people and, how to help others. And it's really important.
Yeah, well, I think I also feel that we are all, from my experience and friends around me, is that we've had time to reconnect, a lot, and to see how important just simply connecting. I mean, we all talk in our business, especially events, how important it is to connect with our clients. But to connect with ourselves and our own friends and family. I think that's what part of the gift that this has given us, is to be able to sit still and see how important that is and what it means to us.
Absolutely. And you're right. You've got to look at it as a gift, because if you look at it the other way, then, you've got to look at this as a positive. That's right. There's a lot of, you can't say that to everybody. And I know that. And I could easily say that, we've lost all of our business, but I'm just looking at, it's just going through life, looking at the positive, isn't it? There's always something positive that you can get out of any of the worst situations. There's always something positive that comes out of it. Absolutely. It's the only way to do it. Well, Matt, this is really been a pleasure getting to know you like this and hearing your story. And like I said, we'll have everything in the show notes. I just urge everyone to go through all these, all the different photos, and they're just so beautiful and moving to me. So thank you for being on the show. No, it's been my pleasure. It's funny, isn't it? I mean, I always go on these shows, and a lot of the time I talk about my personal work before I talk about weddings. But I think that's also an interesting part of my, I guess, my approach with wedding photography is I'd share my personal work first, because I think a lot of the time people will get attracted to a photographer's personal work. Absolutely. So they know them as a person and they know what they're interested in. Yeah. A lot of my weddings, it'll be the husband who will look at the work and maybe take a bit of interest in this wedding photographer who's taking underwater pictures with sharks. You're like, wow, what's going on there? That's a good point. That's true. I mean, I don't want to be sexist. Don't mean that at all. But yeah, as a guy, looking at the photos, my eyes immediately went right to the adventure. That's what grabbed me. So if I was getting married, yeah, I'd be calling you, because you've got that sense of adventure, which I love. So I get it. Totally. Well, thanks, Matt. I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you so much, Andy. It's been really nice to chat to you. And thank you for getting me on here. Absolutely. I feel privileged to be here. Oh, thanks for saying that, man. Thank you. Thank you, Andy. Thank you for listening to my conversation with Matt Porteous. Be sure to check out his information for weddings. It's weddingsm.com. His other website is thestudiom.com. His handle on Instagram is m_weddings. His personal Instagram is Matt Porteous, and his Ocean Culture Life website is oceanculture.life. You can get all of that I just listed in our show notes at the website of theweddingbiz.com. And don't forget to check out our follow-on segment that comes out every Wednesday called The Next Level, in which I have a guest co-host, and together we tease out some of the highlights of the interview. And this week's guest co-host is going to be Jennifer Stein, co-founder and editor-in-chief of Destination I Do magazine. It was a wonderful conversation. We went even beyond the usual for The Next Level, so be sure to tune in on Wednesday as well. And we want to thank our sponsor for today, and that's the Music Makers Podcast. And we'll catch you next week on The Wedding Biz.